Hey guys, Rift here, and today let's talk about Remnant from the Ashes. If you didn't know, Epic Games are giving out free games from today till December 30th. Tell me down below what game you'd like to see. So, one of the free games was Remnant from the Ashes, and I really had a lot of fun with this game. I only played this game exclusively with friends, which to me added to the fun of it. This game takes a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls. Think Dark Souls with guns, and that formula is really fun. From performing pixel-perfect dodging, to dying from constantly falling, to the crystal that basically acts like bonfires, and the stamina bar, to healing, to even how bosses are introduced. The inspiration for this game is clear, and Gunfire Games wanted to take their own spin on the genre. Since the birth of Dark Souls and its success, every game had to be Souls-like, or at least tried. With all of the Souls-like clones out there, there are a lot of really bad ones, but Remnant from the Ashes is an exception to that in my eyes. First, let's take a look at the story. The story takes place in a post-apocalyptic setting wherein the Root, these tree-looking things, have taken over the earth and brought destruction. You, the player, was tasked to search for the tower and ultimately bring an end to the Root. Now, this may all sound generic as hell, and there may be a deep story and lore behind all of this, but I honestly didn't care. Normally I would, but since I was playing this game exclusively with friends, none of us really cared. All we wanted to do was shoot some trees and aliens and get to the next boss fight. The combat and gameplay overall was pretty basic. You get to choose 3 archetypes: the Scrapper, the close range tank, the ex-cultist, who excelled in supporting yourself and your teammates, and the Hunter, my personal favorite and the class I played throughout the whole game. The Hunter is good at long range and dealing high damage with crits. As I mentioned earlier, the combat and gameplay resembles a lot like Dark Souls. You have your HP and stamina. Stamina affects how long you can run, and of course dodge and dodge rolling. Now, dodging in this game was actually really fun. For example, when we were fighting the Undying King, the best way to dodge his melee attacks were to face him directly and perfectly time your dodges. This also goes for most bosses. One of the most iconic things in any Souls-like games are the bosses. Here it's no different. Boss encounters were really fun, learning patterns and when and how to dodge was also very engaging. The variety of bosses were really fun and unique. Though some bosses felt like pushovers, there were some that felt really frustrating to fight, like that bug thing on the narrow bridge that had this laser attack that would push you off. Sure, you can say that we could dodge them, but the placement of the bosses was on opposite side of the bridge. Meaning while facing the other boss, the one behind you would use this laser attack to push you over, and for some reason, only 1 foot over the bridge and it would suck you down to your death. One issue I had was the sections in between the bosses. The section with the regular enemies were pretty underwhelming. Some sections of the game got pretty repetitive, especially during the near-end locations. Most of the dungeon section looked the same. Some dungeon sections were just the same layout but mirrored, and that made the game feel repetitive and unengaging. We would always explore the sections for loot, but most of the time, we were looking for the next portal to fight the next boss. The combat in general was really fun. The guns and how they felt was really great. The one issue I had with this was there was a lack of weapons to choose from. Aside from a few weapons you get across the world and the ones you can craft from defeating bosses, I felt like the variety of guns was not enough. Armors felt the same way. Some of the weapons and armors were only acquirable through another playthrough or by luck. And while to be honest, I wouldn't really want to play this game alone, and most of my friends that play this game with me wanted to play other games after we finished this one. It would have been nice to have more weapons and armor sets to test around different builds. Let's get back to the combat. It's straightforward. You have your melee weapon, which none of us really used throughout our playthrough, a handgun, and a long gun. Handguns are really useful because you don't really want to keep using your long gun while exploring. Though ammo wasn't scarce, it would still be annoying to look for ammos for your long gun in the middle of an intense fight, or have to use the ammo box. You also had mods you can attach to most guns. Mods added active skills, like the Hunter's Mark, which would mark all enemies close by you and for your teammate, and give 10% crit chance on marked enemies for 30 seconds. You also had Mender's Aura, that creates a healing pool for you and your teammates. Though mods were really useful in some cases, most of the other mods were just a nice niche to have. Lastly, let's talk about weak spots. Yeah, it's fun to hit those. Another thing I would like to talk about is the mission tracker. We had this issue where the game was telling us to return to the labyrinth when we cleared everything there. The quest line would only continue if we did it ourselves, meaning it was stuck telling us to return to the labyrinth when what we actually had to do was explore this new area to look for Ford. Next, let's talk about character builds. First, the armors. We talked about this earlier, but let's look a little deeper. If you're wearing a full set of armor with the same name, it would provide additional passive abilities. For example, the Hunter set gives more reliable range and increased weak spot damage, just to name one. Again, it was really a bummer to not have easier access to more armors to test builds out, but overall it wasn't a deal breaker. The flip side to that was the armors and weapons scale with you when you spend resources to upgrade them. This to me was a really good mechanic, because you didn't have to actively look for new gear. You can just focus on what you have and upgrade your weapons and armors, and you can basically finish the game with the starting gear. One unique thing about this game was how you would level up your character. You had traits, and you basically get traits by beating bosses and doing certain actions and unlocking secrets. This was one of the highlights for this game, as it was really nice to be able to allocate trait points to passive skills you want, making it really easy to specialize your character and maximize your build. Lastly, you had trinkets and rings. They also provided passive support for your character. If you liked the video, don't forget to press that like button, comment down below what you think about this game, and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 500 subs. So I've been mentioning that I only play this with friends, and yeah, I did. To me, this game was a lot more fun, mainly because you can play this game with friends. I don't know if I would have played this game to the end if I wasn't playing with friends. One thing I really like about this game is during story conversations. If your friends join your world, only you can interact with the story. Your friends or other people that join your world would not be able to choose your dialogue choices. I really feel like this game was made to be played with friends rather than going at it lone wolf, which again added more fun to the experience. Another plus of this was the loot. A lot of the co-op looter shooters like to randomize and not share the loot with your group. But here it's not like that. If your teammate finds a ring, everyone gets the same ring. It's the same with all other resources, weapons, and armor. Another thing I noticed about this game is that this game wants you to play multiple playthroughs. The game structure and design was built so that you would want to replay the story again, or if you wanted to go through a boss fight again. For example, certain random events will not trigger throughout a run. The only way for them to trigger is that if you would replay the story mode again and hope to get the random event. Certain resources as well were locked behind the game's difficulty. You can also re-roll the world you're playing, so if you finish a run, you can re-roll the world and even play in a higher difficulty to get higher level resources and even a chance to unlock new secrets. Now this is actually a good idea, but for me and my friends, we just wanted to finish the game and move over to the next game we wanted to play. I would like to think that most players after one run would think the same, but still it was a good idea to promote replayability, and the story mode overall was pretty short. Me and my friends were able to finish my world in under 9 hours, making the story mode more enticing to replay. But again, for us, replaying this game was not really something we wanted to do. Spoilers ahead for the final boss. If you want, you can skip to the conclusion here. So the final boss was really underwhelming. At first we got annoyed because our guns were not doing any damage, but after a quick Google search, you can basically beat the boss by stacking damage when it uses the Sharingan ability. While there, you can kill mobs to stack damage. After we learned this, the boss was a cakewalk. To conclude, this game takes a lot from its inspiration, Dark Souls. And like what I said earlier, a lot of Souls-like games are pretty bad, but this one really stands out to me. The multiplayer aspect of the game made going through the game really fun, and the game also wants players to replay the game over and over again, which, like what I said, is a good concept if you really like the game. The gameplay and combat overall was really good, and made the gameplay loop enjoyable. Like every Souls-like games, bosses are their highlights, and Remnant from the Ashes did deliver in some points. Though the sections in between felt underwhelming, it was bearable because I had my friends to go through it all. If you want to know should you play this game, I would say grab a few friends and enjoy this game. If you're a fan of Souls-like games, this game is a really good entry in that genre. The multiplayer aspect makes it a lot better. And that's gonna be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much if you made it this far. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out.